Jackie, we're ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Board of Education meeting and our new Commons room. So it's our first meeting in here. We're going to experience something new together. So the first thing I'd like to do is point out the emergency exits. There are on each side, and then follow the exit signs to the nearest outside door. And if everyone can please stand now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a few housekeeping details before we get to one of the more exciting parts of the evening, which is the recognition of our students. First, may I have a motion for the approval of the financial reports?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion acknowledging receipt of the financial reports?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And any and all correspondence that we have received that is able to be posted is outside on a desk. Yes. This brings us to items for information and our student government officers. So, Dr. Johnson?
I'm going to ask that Mr. Murphy, please, if you would, go to the podium and bring the podium forward.
Bring it.
Just understand, this is a whole learning experience for all of us. It's a brand-new facility and wireless mic. So, John, if you would, please.
Good evening and welcome to another new year. Are we still allowed to call it a new year in October? I am. The first call to business is one of my extreme pleasures to recognize and welcome the student elected officials who represent not just the student body, but the community as elected officials. Some are upperclassmen, some have had positions of leadership before this year, but they all work in concert with me, the faculty, and the administration, both as the voice of the student body, as role models, but as part of the liaison and the partnership. Their work is manifested especially well during Spirit Week, but they do work with us in concert all year. So I thank them ahead of time for their service, and I look forward to working with them very closely. First of all, I'd like to welcome the student government officers. These are the upperclassmen who represent the entire student body. The student government president, Samantha Horowitz.
Come on up, Samantha.
Oh, photo op. Yeah. The first vice president, Kevin Schnee. Second vice president, Allison Maluli. And treasurer, Jessica Morrow.
John, hang on one second.
Let me get out of the way.
No, they want you in it.
Wait, they're adding more people.
All right, more bodies, here we come.
Slide that over.
Pictures that Lauren takes are on the Facebook page for any of those that want to download a copy.
But wait, there's more. We'd also like to recognize the class presidents, who again represent each individual class, and some of whom are new additions to our leadership. but all have a very important part to play in ensuring the smooth and efficient running of this school, and I thank them for volunteering and winning the election. Our senior class president, Paulina Kenny. Our junior class president, Julia Lancelota. Did she make it? No?
She had her appendix out last.
Yeah, I know, but... Sophomore class president, Lauren Thomas. And freshman class president, Savannah May. I don't know. Am I done?
Okay, moving on to our next recognition. We have 2 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists.
Go ahead, John.
Can I go out of order a little bit?
Please.
Go right ahead.
For those of who don't know, the National Merit Scholarship Program is conducted each year by the National Merit Scholarship Program, and it's based on the results of the PSAT exam results from the previous year. We actually took the PSAT exams today at the high school. Based on last October's results, over 1.6 million students nationally take this exam. From those results, the top 3% in the country are recognized as commended students. And again, that's based on a raw score. Of that top 3%, the top 1% of the 1.6 million is then recognized as national merit semifinalists, who then have the right to go on to the next phase of the competition as a result of a scholarship application, SAT exams, and another series of credentials. They have the opportunity to become national merit finalists in the scholarship program, which will be recognized in February. So we thank and congratulate all of the students who are about to be named. It was a good year for all their hard work, as well as the work that they have yet to do, and for their contributions. First, I'd like to recognize the commended students. Congratulations to, and Liam Chung I know couldn't make it, but we'll congratulate him anyway. Mr. Liam Chung. Annie Ford. Mr. James Ryan. Erin Sherlock. And Thomas York. Congratulations. You want a separate photo op?
Go.
Okay. But don't go far. Why don't you have a seat and then we'll take one collectively. Again, congratulations to our National Merit semifinalists who are in the top 1% nationally, Mr. Brandon Stein and Matthew Barrett.
Turn to the side, guys, like a wedding picture.
Nice.
That's how you do it.
And once again, just so everybody knows, Lauren's pitches are available on the district Facebook page.
Okay, we've come to the portion of the evening that I just love most, is the recognition of our
No,
school
it's
board.
my turn.
I know, I'm going to give it to you right now.
So, look, this is so interesting that we are talking about governance tonight. We have an opportunity to honor the students who provide us with the governance here at Southside, in the Southside High School. It is remarkable to see that they are all volunteers and they give their heart and soul to the school in ways in which others don't necessarily have the opportunity. What's very interesting is also that tonight we have an opportunity to recognize and provide some thanks to people who serve in a very different capacity. They have to be elected by members of the community in order to serve you in a volunteer governance role. They are members of our Board of Education. What many of you don't realize is that they really are volunteers that subject themselves to an election every 3 years, and in fact spend inordinate amount of hours, much of their lives, dedicated to, in fact, trying to work with us, work with all of the administrators and teachers in this school district in order to make it what it is. They spend their life thinking about you. It is remarkable to see every 2 weeks that we get together, the time and effort that they put in, again, strictly on a volunteer basis, trying to make sure that the community in which they live, the schools that serve the children who come to them every day, are in fact better every single year that they serve. Having worked with them for as many years as I have, it is an incredible experience to see that however their mind may be when they come to the board when they first get elected, one of the things that happens when they do come together as a board is that you come first. And it is remarkable to see that the decisions that they make every single month or every 2 weeks, twice a month, really have you in mind. They want to make this community better. They want to make our school district better. And it is an opportunity for us tonight to thank them for the work that they do. Not that we can spend a whole lot of money, and in fact recognizing that, but we do have some cookies and things outside, which is probably the full extent of what their compensation is for the year. At any rate, the point is, they are the leaders that we want in this community. They have put themselves before the community to be elected, just as you have, just as the students here tonight that we recognize, put themselves out in ways in which others do not, in order to make this a better place to live and a better school district to send your children. They succeed, and it's an opportunity for us to thank them and honor them tonight. So congratulations to members of the Board of Education. We would also like to ask Brian Zuar, as we have done now for a few years, as part of the honor ceremony. Brian, if you would, please introduce some of our students.
By all means. Our high school chamber singers are out there. I guess they're walking to the other entrance. We'll be here in a moment. But about a month ago, I had the pleasure of accompanying them to Saratoga, where they sang at the opening of New York State Council of Superintendents Fall Leadership Summit. The theme of the summit was cultivating the spirit within each child. Just today, I received a letter from the Council's Associate Director, Teresa Moore, in which she wrote, We would also like to specifically thank your student performers for sharing their talents with our summit attendees in 2 performances. Your music program was truly the highlight of the summit.
They should be here to hear this.
Yeah,
Could you
why
come
don't-
in? Bring them in.
So Dr. Freiling and our students made Dr. Johnson and me very proud on that weekend in Saratoga, not only because of their beautiful singing, but because of their advocacy for arts education. Both Dr. Freiling and Colette Brancaccio made some very eloquent remarks at that summit about the importance of music and art education in our schools and in their lives. If you permit me, I'd like to take an opportunity tonight to share my reflections on the same subject. I graduated from 8th grade in high school years ago. And regularly I attend reunions of my classes. And actually some of my closest friends to this day are still from those many decades ago. When we get together, you hear things like, remember the time when the choir took the trip to Washington and we sang at the Capitol? Remember the time we did this or that song or this or that show? This is 40 plus years later, all right? The cat's out of the bag. In fact, on the subject of shows, during a high school show, I met my wife. And some of our closest friends are friends to this day, 40-some years later, from those high school productions. I can tell you when we're with these old friends, this is what you never hear. Hey, remember the time when we solved for X? Or, you know, that 11th grade social studies regents, it really touched my heart, you know? You never hear that, you know? And please, I'm joking, and I don't mean to diminish the importance of studying math or history, but I'm only trying to highlight that performing and visual arts elicit emotional investments from us. They permit us to express complex concepts and feelings that integrate many of the other disciplines into those performances, and they make indelible marks on our psyche, our spirits, our souls. No wonder the New York State Council of Superintendents chose the theme, Cultivating the Spirit Within Each Child. When Dr. Freiling and Colette shared their reflections in Saratoga, Dr. Johnson and I were so proud and pleased because some districts and some educators and some superintendents don't get it, and they needed to hear those remarks. But the reason we were invited is because in Rockville Center, we do get it. This community, this board, gets it, and that's why they are here tonight to recognize and thank this board in the best way they know how, by sharing their music. Dr. Freiling?
Going to sing for you what could be a very, very sad song, but offers a lot of hope at the end. This is a piece called Autumn by a contemporary Swedish composer whose name is Jussi Kidenius. He's still alive, he's a big fan of ABBA. And, and this piece really speaks to us. And when I asked the kids what they wanted to sing, this is what they very emphatically said they wanted to sing. Got it?
There's a wind where the rose
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. Very, very well done.
Thank you.
How are the acoustics?
How are the acoustics? Well, you should ask them. How are the acoustics? Better than the cafeteria.
So you found a new home here in this room.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we,
Wonderful.
Doreen,
Yes.
could we somehow get a picture? If we could? Mark, I don't know. Can you do it in the corner? The board should be up there with that.
Okay, what? Right. Right, okay, what I'd like to say is that while the board is taking a picture with Chamber, is that please go out into the hall and enjoy some refreshments, and figure that we'll be back here to resume the meeting in about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy wanted to say something?
Do you want to? No, it's after. You want afterwards? Oh, yes. You can, while you're enjoying the refreshments provided by PTA, you can go check out some of the classrooms and facilities that we have in this part of the building. We're going to get started with Chris with the 2015-16 grades 3 through 8 assessments. Sorry, what?
Nothing. Talking to myself.
Okay, so we can move.
Oh, we moved?
All right, you ready?
We can't just, okay. I have to move? Apparently I have to move. I never made people move.
Well, tonight's the night that we generally present to the Board of Education and to the community the overall statistical picture of what it is that we consider to be our report card. New York State requires that we provide to the community a summary of the state testing results. We intend to do that. I just wanted to make a few remarks before we actually begin. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Pelletieri first, and then to well, we have two high school administrators with us tonight who will be, in fact, talking about the high school results. But let me just, first of all, address 3 through 8. One of the things that you need to take note of as we begin to walk our way through the presentation will be opt-out. And for those of you who are residents of this community, you know very well that opt-out movement in this community, and as in many others, caused us to have anywhere from about 47% in third grade opting out to as high as 75% of the kids in 8th grade opting out. So essentially what happens is that the data that we begin to get back from the state essentially is uninterpretable. If we have only half of the kids, we don't know how well the other half might have performed. We don't even sometimes know what kind of scores they would have gotten because we just have no data to compare it to from the state. The other thing is that the state has walked away from its own data. And they have essentially told us that the state testing results, despite the fact that it's part of our report card, and in fact provided to us on an annual basis as part of our report card, in fact, is probably not valid to begin with. And the reason we know that from their point of view is the admission that it cannot be used to either place a student or to promote a student under any circumstances. We are also not permitted to use it to evaluate teachers. So what we have known is that the validity of the results have been seriously compromised by the fact that very few of our kids are taking the exam. But in addition to that, the state, virtually by the fact that it also invited a number of teachers in to modify the actual test questions, also compromised the validity of the test itself. In addition to that, they provided extended time. They allowed kids to sit for as long as they wanted. Again, walking away from the actual standards that they had put in place initially for the construct of the test, also compromising the validity. So while we will be, in fact, presenting these to you, you have to understand that the results are there and can be interpreted by you in any way that you would like. We, however, in this community, believe very, very strongly in external validation. We have been very, very concerned in recent years because the state data is fraught with error. At the end of the day, we have, in fact, opted to work with a second test called the NWEA. And what we are trying to do there is provide that as a proxy for what used to be a valid measure by the state. There is no question that the NWEA results are valid. They are real. We have other reasons why we happen to like the NWEA. During a transition period, we believe that the ultimate decision by the state is in fact going to be in the direction of taking on and using an adaptive measure, which the NWEA is. We know that it's going to be computer-based. There's a very good chance that it will be also a vertical scale. It has all of the characteristics of what we believe to be probably the replacement for what was the state exam. And so consequently, we have made the decision to go with the NWEA. We are using it this year. We have been using it now for the last 4 years. And the results that we have, which will be presented by Mr. Pelletieri, will in fact make a comparison between the national norms that are used with the NWEA and ours, just to demonstrate on a comparative basis where we stand with regard to how well we did with the state exams, and then secondly, how well we do with the NWEA. They do parallel one another somewhat, but our emphasis really needs to be off of the state and onto the NWEA. The one caveat to this is that as we begin to take a look at the 8th grade, what we want you to do is to focus on the results in math and science. We walk away from the state tests at that point, and the proxy that we use for a replacement is another state test, which is the state regents exams. So we use in 8th grade the 2 regents exams. We have earth science and we have algebra. So without further ado, I will ask Mr. Pelletieri to please to summarize for us the results on the state and the NWEA. Chris?
Dr. Johnson, thank you very much. I think that concludes our presentation, actually. The fastest presentation. John, you ready? Okay. We begin with just an example again of the levels. New York State has 4 levels for our students. Students that are well below proficient would be level 1. Students that are partially meeting level 2. Students that are proficient, level 3. And students who excel. Well, since this red light is working, I'll use it. If you can read that there. We'll jump right into the test results. You'll see Rockville Center in blue, and the state results in I guess a lime or a green. What color is that, Noreen?
Sort of sagey, dark
Sagey? Okay. You'll see that I did include on each slide the opt-out, and you'll see that as we move forward. And that is certainly a concern when you look at the validity of an exam. You don't know what those students would have scored. So that is a concern. Despite the fact that 47% are not partaking in the test, we did have 71% as compared to 42% of the state at levels 3 and 4. But again, the opt-out is an issue. In ELA grade 4, again, doing well compared to the state, opt-out jumped to 60%. ELA grade 5, we almost doubled the state's number of level 3 and 4 students, but opt-out again up to 62%. More than half of those students are not taking the state assessments. Grade 6, opt-out nearly 60%. Now obviously, we look at this result here, we're actually below the state in grade 6 ELA. And that is of great concern to us as administration, as the school leaders and the district itself. But it really is difficult to interpret data when you have 6 out of 10 students not taking the assessment. ELA grade 7 a bit higher, but now we're up to 7 out of 10 students not taking the assessment. ELA grade 8, we are even with the state, up to 75%, 3 out of 4 students not taking the assessment. Dr. Johnson has reminded me year after year since my arrival in Rockville Center that we must have a valid external validation. You must have external validation. You can't continue to tell yourself that you're doing well. You have to have someone outside your district telling you that. And that's why we use measures like the state test. We can't use them as much as we used to. And so therefore we now use the NWA even more. We'll look at math, again, the same 4 levels. We'll look at Rockville Center compared to the rest of the state. Rockville Center in red here. Grade 3. Grade 4, this actually was one of the highest percentages in the state, grade 4 math results in Rockville Center compared to the rest of the state. But again, 61% of the students not partaking in the assessment. 63% not taking in grade 5. ELA in the middle school is above the state level. Opt out pretty high here as well, obviously, in math in grade 7. And what's really key for us, and a couple of things we're going to ask you to take a look at, and I will speak to the NWA as we get there next. Our focus in the middle school, it's a great focus when we talk with our elementary teachers as well, is what is going to help our students pass the algebra regents in 8th grade, pass the earth science and regents in 8th grade. We want to have those kids arrive, the students arrive at the high school with these tests under their belt, with these credits under their belt, so that they can go higher, taking advanced level science and math. And Mr. Murphy and Ms. Nisler will speak to those results. Middle school Common Core algebra. So there's an issue here with these results. The 7th grade test, the tests in 6th grade math and 7th grade math are supposed to inform us as to how our students will do in 8th grade math. And yet our students are passing, and including the August data, 98% of our students are going to the high school with algebra passed, regents and class under their belt, and 93% of our students in earth science. And I have a little asterisk, well, up at the top you'll see, these are 8th grade results. A great many districts allow their honors students to take the algebra regents in 8th grade, allow their honors students to take the earth science regents. We have all of our students, virtually all of our students, take that same test that freshmen are taking in other districts, and they're taking it in 8th grade and passing it overwhelmingly. Our grade 4 science continues to do well, has done well, and has not been impacted in anything by Common Core or new curriculum or new assessments or anything like that. As Dr. Johnson talked about, again, external validation. We needed, because of the numbers of opt-outs, because of the problems and concerns around the validity and reliability of the state assessment program, we needed our own assessment program. And so we do have the NWEA MAP, Measures of Academic Progress. It is an online adaptive assessment. We have used it in the district for several years. It is, has a great deal of research behind it and a great deal of validity and reliability. So we measure ourselves nationally. You'll see the RVC mean here compared to the NWEA mean. So 7,400 partners, 7,400 school districts help make up the NWEA mean. And you'll see our mean in yellow compared to the national mean that NWEA offers in, or has recognized that those are the results of the, all told, 7,400 districts. And you can see our mean telling us that we're doing well, that we're progressing well across the grade levels. This is reading, similarly in math. Again, above the national mean in each grade. And we jump over to the high school. the same students who seem to struggle in, middle school. Sorry, Mr. Murphy. The high school, middle school, you'll see our students doing well, again, compared to that national mean in reading and in math. There is a linking study online. This presentation will be posted online. You can click right in the presentation and go to the linking study to learn more about NWEA and its vertical scale, as Dr. Johnson mentioned. There are also resources online for interpreting the 3 through 8 state assessments. And I always like to talk about, and something that we always talk about in Rockville Center, is multiple measures. You don't want to rely on one data point. You want to have as many measures as possible. High-achieving countries use multiple measures. People who communicate assessment and interpret assessment always want to have multiple measures. It's something that's very important. You don't want to take one point in time or one data point and make decisions based on that. As far as this year's tests, we just had a meeting with our principal. I don't know if Dr. Johnson wants to speak to that somewhat. Our meeting with our principal. This year's tests can be paper and pencil based or computer based. And that was a discussion we just had with our principals at a principals meeting yesterday.
Yeah. The new state calendar came out just a few days ago to talk about what was going to be happening next spring. We had heard a lot of rumors that they were going to make some additional modifications to the current exam protocol that they have together. And what we have discovered is, in fact, that they're going to continue with 3 days of testing this year. The Questar model, which is the vendor that they have selected to replace Pearson, really doesn't have in the pipeline enough items to, in fact, make a significant change. So they're going to continue using many of the old items that are going to be somewhat modified by teachers who will be, in fact, going to Albany. Now, that's all well and good, but again, what's going to happen is that those items never were field tested after the modification, and so consequently, we don't know what they're actually testing. So at the end of the day, the results are going to be, again, somewhat questionable. And so, again, getting back to that whole issue about what the state is doing with regard to compromising the validity of its own tests, it continues to introduce ideas which make it more difficult, not less difficult, for us at the local level to interpret the results that are submitted to us on an annual basis. Getting back to whether or not we will, in fact, move in the direction of a computer-based version of it. This year, what they said was that, well, there are going to be 2 ways in which this will be presented. One will be a paper and pencil version, and the second will be a computer version of essentially the same exam. And we now have, I believe it was 5 days that they gave us to complete the computer version of it versus 3 days to complete the paper and pencil version of the test. The problem is that the computer version is not going to be any different than the paper and pencil version of it. It's going to be as long. And quite frankly, I was at a meeting this morning, and subsequent to our discussion with our principals, we also did a roundtable discussion about who in the county was in fact going to select the computer version. Only 2 districts that we're aware of are in fact going to opt in to the computer version for many of the same reasons that we are not also. And that is that we fully anticipate that the computer version is going to generate even worse results than did the paper and pencil. There has been a lot of national studies that were done when school districts and or counties or whoever it was that made that jump from a traditional paper and pencil to a computer version of that paper and pencil test, only to find out that the results for each of those kids who took those 2 versions dropped significantly on the computer version the first year that they took it. So it doesn't make any sense for us, in fact, to make the jump this year, especially since we are very, very familiar with the NWEA. We know what a computer version of a test can look like. The unfortunate part with the state is that they have chosen to, in fact, try to convert this paper and pencil and put it on computers. We know that's not the way in which you make conversions when, in fact, you begin to utilize electronic media to test kids. It's not going to be an adaptive measure. One of the things about the NWEA and why it only takes an hour is that it's an adaptive measure, which essentially means that as kids answer questions, it changes the pattern of tests. so that if kids find it difficult and stop answering correctly, it begins to go down. If kids do answer the questions correctly, it begins to ratchet up and go quickly. So what happens is it gets very quickly to a challenging level for each individual child, and gives you a valid score. And the validity of the NWA is built around that, so that there's always a cluster of items around where the kid's proficiency is located. The state is not going to utilize that model, and is in fact just going to simply take the paper and pencil version and translate it into computers. We met with the principals yesterday, and we pretty much unanimously agreed that this is not the time to do it. We're going to wait a year or so to see, in fact, what the fallout is from it, and if in fact we are going to go and utilize the computer version, we're going to wait 1 year to do it. So, by the way, just one other comment. I don't mean to belabor a point, but again, when you go back to, and Chris made mention of it, I think it's worth mentioning a second time, and that's the predictive value of what the state test used to do. So that proficiency levels used to try to predict how well kids were going to do on measures that were closely aligned with graduation requirements. So the state 3 through 8 testing was in fact designed to predict how well kids were going to be doing on algebra. Well, guess what, folks? Take a look at the results of how we did right up through 7th grade on, in fact, the state measure, and then ask yourself how well our kids do actually on the algebra itself. So the predictive value of that is just about 0. Only about half the kids score at the proficiency level in Rockville Center. Actually, it's less than half. It's only about 41%. When you take a look at how many kids actually pass the Regents exam, it's about 93% in June, and when you add in the August results, we're up to 98%. So again, when you come back to what we are all about as a district, it's trying to figure out what it is that's going to tell the story about what we are doing in this school district, and we find that the NWEA is a far better measure that enables us to tell us the story of how our kids are progressing through the system. And so we are relying quite heavily upon the results of the NWEA, and we would hope the people in this community do exactly the same thing. So that's it. Chris, I don't know.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Yes, again, so it looks like our students will be taking the test starting Tuesday, March 28th with the paper-based ELA. There was talk of a 2-day exam. It doesn't seem that that's necessarily going to take place since there are 3 days for the assessment. That could change, I guess. And the exam will still be based on Common Core state standards. As you know, there are currently ELA and math standards that are being reviewed across the state. Just a reminder, a quote attributed to Albert Einstein, just recognize that, and I think Dr. Zuar and Dr. Freiling and our youngsters, our singers here tonight, bring that to the fore, that let's not just judge schools or districts or anything by numbers. I think we're producing amazing students. I think NWA helps to support that. I am concerned about the state data opt-outs and those results. That's something that requires further investigation. But I think that we need to remember that not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And this is a pretty neat slide. I found a website where you can get Albert Einstein to write anything on that chalkboard. See that? Thank you, Thank you, RVC, Mr. Pete, on that. And if you want to see me afterwards, I'll tell you the site. That's it. Thank you. We're going to jump right into high school.
Any questions? I don't know.
We're not accepting questions, Dr. Johnson.
Okay,
Mark?
I think what we'll do is we'll save questions on Chris's and John's discussions to immediately after John is finished, and then we'll do questions all at once on those two topics. One more slide, one more presentation, guys. You have slides?
No, we're going
slide
to go. I just want to make a few comments also before we start this one as well. And again, I think, in the discussions that we've had in recent years, it's really, what is the data that tells the story about what Southside is all about? What our high school actually does for this community and for the kids who attend it. And we have to go back to some extent to some research that was done a number of years ago by the ACT and a guy by the name of Cliff Edelman. Now a very famous, he just retired last year, but nevertheless, did a really landmark study a number of years ago, trying to connect what the results were of the ACT and the participation of kids on the ACT, and ultimately how well kids did in college. And what made this so different from anything else that had transpired prior to it, and it was very, very helpful to us at the time in making the decision about the direction in which Southside, in fact, should move, is that what he discovered was that while it was important that kids score well on various tests associated with higher level and college preparatory types of courses that the ACT provides, and they are a competitor, as you know, with AP and with IB. But nevertheless, what he said and what he ultimately concluded was that the success in college did not connect to the grades that kids got as much as it did to the experience of being in those classes. So that what he discovered, and what was very helpful to us in helping us and decide what the direction of this school district was going to go, was that exposure to higher level curriculum prior to the time that kids graduate was the linchpin, in fact, in how well kids succeeded later on. Even though many of their grades were not necessarily commensurate with what a university might accept as an alternative for one of their courses. So that this was seminal research. It was something that has been replicated again and again. It is something that we have found and is in fact true with the kids who go through our school system. So in fact, what is it that we are looking at? So when we begin to examine the totality of what we do here at Southside and ask ourselves the question about what is it that counts, we cannot look exclusively at how well kids do in every single course. We cannot look exclusively at how well they do on the results of all the Regents exam. What is a critical factor is how many kids, as they begin to move through Southside, are exposed to higher level curriculum. How many kids end up in IB courses? So we have to take a look at two things. Not only the scores that kids bring, but the frequency distribution within a particular cohort. A cohort meaning the number of kids who enter ninth grade. So that you have to ask yourself, how many kids actually end up in physics? How many kids end up in calculus? So that becomes a critical factor, which has been replicated again and again in the literature on connections between high school work and college success. So what we want to do is, in fact, make sure that we articulate the story that Southside tells. So when John presents, you will begin to see how important it is that both of those elements be included in the way in which we present the picture of what Southside is all about. So, John?
Hi. I like this idea. Yeah, I could go through the hallways and have a whole, right? Hi. Does this work from here?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Ms. Nisler-Cross and I would like to provide an overview for the assessment results. I beg your indulgence to consider the following. As Dr. Johnson said, that you can become inundated with numbers, and more important, I'd like you to consider the story that those numbers tell. Specifically, three major thrusts. I'd like you to think programmatically and ask yourself, what do you want for a student upon graduation from Southside in terms of level of preparedness, and what do you want their experience to be, and how do we know if they're prepared or not? I'd also like you to consider the fact that the results do signal the end of a course for a student, but it's actually just the beginning for us. And what do those results mean, and how do we use them and utilize them in order to inform our instruction to make sure that the students that follow them are adequately prepared and better informed? And thirdly, what does the assessment provide us? What does the test, the thing, give us as a community and as a faculty in order to better instruction and to understand what we do well, what we need to work on, and what specific components we need to facilitate learning with the students. In other words, look at the whole as we look at the discrete parts. The first program or series of exams that we'd like to discuss are the other New York State Regents exams. They're a comprehensive series of tests that students take starting at grade 8 up until 12 that culminate in a series of diplomas. There is a Regents Diploma that is based on a series of 5 exams: English, Global History, U.S. History, one Science, usually Earth Science, and Algebra. The second level is a Regents with Advanced Designation, which is those 5 exams plus a foreign language, what's called the FLAX exam, which is locally administered but done regionally. 2 extra math exams, Geometry and Algebra 2, which, well, January will be the last administration of the Algebra 2 Trig Regents, is to be replaced by Algebra 2, as well as a second science, which normally is living environment, but can be another life science. So in terms of, there is a third option, and I'd like to talk about it very briefly, which is called a local diploma for students with an IEP, where they can earn a local diploma with slightly lower than passing rates on the Regents exams. The Regents diploma rate at the high school has become so high that it's almost become a non sequitur. 99.6% of all graduates last year earned a Regents diploma. To put that into context, in the last 4 years, we've had 1 local diploma. The rest have been Regents diplomas amongst our graduates. Last year, 86% of the students earned the Regents with Advanced Designation. That's one of the best in the state, and that's not with controlling for community affluence. So 86% is a number that is one of the hallmarks that the program of learning is facilitating success for all our students, not just in 1 or 2 courses, but in all. It's a matter of fact that as the results are about to unfurl before you, this is not just us saying that we're doing a good job. A lot of these external standards are validated not just by us, but by other examiners, other graders, and other moderators. And as a result of our combination of equity and access, we were recognized this September as the Schools of Opportunity, which was a national search conducted by the National Education Policy Center in coordination with the University of Colorado at Boulder and the Washington Post, which looked at schools through a series of applications, interviews, as well as site visits that looked for those attributes that welcomed and celebrated access as well as success amongst all your population. When you look more granularly at those components that make up the Regents results rates in terms of Regents diplomas, what you have in front of you right now are the passing rates and mastery rates of the Regents exams. The mastery rates and the passing rates are all the more laudable, but I'd like you to consider what Dr. Johnson told you earlier. It's not just a raw number or a percentage. What I'd like you to consider is the percentage of students who are taking each exam. Obviously, the cohort percentage that I included is not the total number of students who take that exam before they graduate. What I looked at was the percentage of the cohort for the grade level that we associate with that exam if the student is taking it in the normal path. For instance, Algebra 2 trigonometry is traditionally, for most of our students, taken in the 10th grade. But that's because we're universally accelerated in mathematics. In the rest of the state, students take that as late as 11th and 12th grade, and as can ours if they don't pass it the first time. Of course, 100% of our students take the English Regents in 11th grade because it's a requirement for both the Regents diploma and the advanced designation. The passing rate is the thing that I would like to celebrate there, as they're also completing IB coursework. Those courses in bold, where the numbers are in bold, are those courses that are required for the Regents with advanced designation. In other words, passing beyond the Regents diploma rate, 96% of our students are at the level of taking a language at the Regents level. That then prepares them, and that's usually in the 10th grade, to complete 2 more years of IB foreign language. 75% of our students take physics. I don't know if you can understand what that number means. Physics is so difficult, it's not even on the framework of advanced designation. It goes beyond advanced designation. 75% pale. I don't even have a frame of reference to tell you what that means. It's a lot. 88% of our students in 10th grade take the Algebra 2 trigonometry regions. That number goes up if I looked at the graduating cohort. In other words, some students, for whatever reason, don't get to take it in 10th grade. They come in from another district and they don't start algebra till 9th grade. They failed one of the prerequisite courses, so they have until 11 and 12. That number goes up. But the reason I use the cohort is to testify to the health and wellness of the system that prepares students to take as many advanced courses as they are fit to take upon leaving, because we know that is the gold standard. A single course is not going to prepare a student for university rigor. We need them to take a program, a series of courses at their own level of comfort or discomfort. My daughter graduated last year, I get it. So that they have a series of courses so that when they're ready to leave here, the decisions for course selection, choice of major in college is theirs to make, not their transcript. Again, these numbers do go up. What I stopped at the June administration of the regions. There are students, for instance, another 8% of students passed the geometry regions in the August taking, August 15th, but I don't include those because it wouldn't be fair, number one. Number two, the state counts the cycle of the year from this August to June. Oh, I forgot. As Dr. Johnson said, the goal is, number one, to get students ahead to a series of courses at their particular choice of rigor, looking at the full IB diploma, because we know it's the gold standard. We know if a student has the proclivity and the prerequisite courses, this is what we know literally guarantees success of college graduation in 4 years, irrespective of the student's choice of major, the college admissions that they chose to be admitted to, and whether or not they get college credit, which is a whole separate issue that maybe we'll talk about later. As Dr. Johnson said, a lot of this universal acceleration started around 25 years ago when a couple of studies came out. We'll skip the first 10 years, but the Edelman study that Dr. Johnson referred to, it was called Voices from the Toolbox, and he testified and proved through research that if a student took 1 year of calculus in high school, the chances and probability of them graduating college in 4 years increased by 400%, irrespective of how they did in that calculus course, and we've always advocated for that. The students in this school who take AP Calculus have passed through the Regents requirements and the IB requirements, and in senior year have taken calculus. So they're 2 steps beyond what the state requires for math requirement. In other words, what we offer, separate from the IB diploma program, are 3 AP courses: AB Calculus, BC Calculus, which is the more challenging of the 2, and AP Statistics. 71% of the graduating class of 2016 completed 1 AB math course. I'll say it again. 71% of the graduating class of 2016 completed an AP math course. I don't have a frame of reference to tell you with regard to how we place with similarly or like schools. 111 students took AB Calculus, 56 took BC Calculus, and 13 took AP Statistics. I want to come back to this more a little bit when we finish the IB diploma sequence. The average scores for some are a cause for concern. Taken out of context, and this has been a historical issue from 18 to 20 years. Our BC calculus results are fairly solid, as are statistics. We'll talk more about that calculus result, but the reason that we testify and advocate for this so strongly is because we have bodies of evidence here at this high school that if we get a student through that calculus course and their grades in the course on their transcript are solid and strong, as well they should be, they hit the ground running at college. Lest the truth be known, and I know I won't put you on the spot, most students, irrespective of whether they earn the college credit for the AP Calculus course, sit the college calculus course anyway. And colleges actually advocate for that. So whether or not they scored a 4 or better, in the context of their preparedness for school, it doesn't matter as much as the fact that they're walking in with a year of calculus preparation. But I'd like to come back to that later and talk about our approach forward. Which brings us to, oops, sorry. the average scores are less than stellar if you take them out of context, and I'll return to them later. All right, which segues into the more coherent program that we have, the IB diploma program that Ms. Nisler-Cross will go into in terms of the whole program and then the individual results.
Which one here? Okay. Hello, everyone. So as Mr. Murphy mentions, I'll be walking you through the IB diploma program and giving you an idea of our results from last year. Once again, we had a really wonderful year in terms of both participation and the results. We had 423 11th graders and 12th graders combined who were registered either as full diploma candidates or as course candidates, meaning that they might be taking one IB course, they might take 3 IB courses, they might take more than that. 51% of the seniors chose to challenge themselves at the highest level as full diploma candidates, which is really pretty incredible. And I'm happy to report that we had 93 students who earned the diploma. That's 37% of the graduating class, okay? And to kind of put that in context, there is no IB school on Long Island and no school of a similar size or similar population, even in New York State, who comes close to these numbers and these percentages. It really is the case that the preparation that the students are receiving here and the opportunities that they're being offered 9th through 12th grade are creating this sort of can-do mindset where they are rising to the occasion and really just performing spectacularly. To give you a clear sense of their accomplishment and to provide a context for the results that are going to follow, I'd like to walk you through the full diploma requirements. And I'm walking you through the full diploma simply because it encompasses everything. So whether you're a course candidate or you're doing the full diploma, elements of this apply to the students. And this is going to give you a sense of the comprehensive and cohesive nature of the program that Mr. Murphy highlighted earlier on, the idea that elements of this and the program itself benefit all students at all levels of participation. So if you look at the slide here, to meet the IB diploma requirements, students take 3 higher level courses and 3 standard level courses from 6 core curriculum groups. And you see those groups there on the side, 1 through 6. The difference between higher level, the HL courses, and standard level is not necessarily one of difficulty, it's one of length. So HL courses require 240 hours and take place over the course of 2 years. And standard level courses require at least 150 hours and may be taken over 1 year or 2 years. Each course is graded on a scale of 1 through 7. With the idea that a 4 tends to be considered a satisfactory understanding and demonstration of content and skills. So students need to accumulate a minimum of 24 points in order to earn the diploma. Okay. Furthermore, to meet the diploma requirements, students participate in 3 core elements. They are the extended essay, theory of knowledge class that they take in senior year, and the CAS program. And these are really special, and they're called the core elements because they're really the heart of the program. It's an opportunity to enhance skills that students are developing in their classes, as well as broadening their perspective through experiential learning. So they are developing their research and writing skills through a 3,000 to 4,000 word extended essay. They choose a subject of interest, a topic of personal interest, and they research and write in response to that over the course of 2 years. For theory of knowledge, this is a class that encourages students to reflect on their own knowledge systems, to inquire about the world around them, to ask, what do I know? How do I know it? What is my evidence? What is someone else's evidence? And then lastly, we have the creativity, action, and service, where students engage in various activities and create a portfolio of their experiences, an opportunity for them to reflect on their experiences. And this is, I think, one of the elements that sets the IB program apart from any other sort of program or testing service, if you will, because it's focusing on students' lives outside of the classroom. There's a recognition that there is life beyond the classroom, and students are encouraged to engage in physical pursuit, in creative pursuits, in humanitarian pursuits. And it's really very special because we're not just focusing on their minds, we're also focusing on their physical well-being, as well as their relationships with other people. Okay. So that is basically the whole diploma program. And what I'm going to show you now are the individual course results. Okay, so we're going to start first with the higher level exam results. You'll notice here that next to the subjects, you can see how many students participated in each course. And then it lists the school average and the global average. And we do that on purpose. One way we evaluate our success is by considering the two averages next to one another. What we really have to keep in mind, it's essential to keep in mind, is that so many of the IB schools around the world are schools that restrict access to the IB program. They restrict it to those students that they feel are the elite. And here, and many of them, in fact, are private schools or magnet schools, okay, that have these gated programs. We view students and education in general very differently here at Southside. It really is why we were named a school of opportunity, as Mr. Murphy mentioned earlier. Our program is very inclusive, so when we see our averages approximating or exceeding the global average, we're really very proud of those results. So if you can consider, for example, the English higher level course, where we have 194 students registered, okay, and you can see our school average. Also, our higher level Spanish, in the 5 range and even improved upon last year. And also, in keeping with our earlier experience, if you look at the arts scores at the bottom, you can see how well our students are doing in the various arts, and it speaks to the wonderful program that we have here at the high school. On the next slide here, we have the standard level results, and I'd like to highlight the courses that have the largest enrollments, and those are Spanish, SL Math, and Math Studies. And you can see that the 2 math courses exceeded, or our average exceeded, the global averages yet again. Last year we had done so, and this year again we did so. So you can see that some of our most inclusive classes are some of our most successful ones. Okay. A strength of the IB program is that it's a constantly evolving system, and I think that aligns really nicely with the district's own perspective and philosophy. We place great emphasis on self-assessment, self-reflection. With the IB program, courses go through a 7-year review to make sure that best practices are being implemented based on educational research, and that coursework is relevant in a world that is constantly changing. We take a similar approach. We engage in constant self-reflection, and it affects our course offerings, our professional development, our curriculum writing. So to give you an update on current news with the IB program, I'll just list them all and walk you through them quickly. This was or is the first year that we are offering IB Business, and we're really off to a fabulous start. We wanted to offer students more choice, but we wanted to make it something that would be really relevant in today's world. The teachers and the students are really hard at work. Teachers are engaged in constant professional development, and later in the year, we'll be focusing on curriculum writing for the 2nd year of IB Business. We, in speaking about the 7-year review and the latest iterations, this year IB Environmental Systems is in its first year of its latest iteration. Curriculum is written, and these teachers have the benefit actually of the other sciences experiences, because the other sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, actually had the first year of their new iteration last year. So our environmental systems teachers are able to benefit from what the other science teachers have experienced. And you can see, if we jump a bullet, you'll notice revisions to the first year of the sciences. Those sciences who last year had their first new exams, they are all actively involved in analyzing the data, and Mr. Murphy will speak to that shortly in terms of professional development and really digging into our results to think about, okay, we've been through a year of this, what can we do to improve upon our results and raise it to the next level? This is also the first year of the new 12th grade IB history curriculum. And again, teachers have attended training, curriculum has been written, topics have been chosen that align really well with one another, so that this will allow for more depth of understanding within IB history. Let's see. IB also in recent years has really been making a concerted effort to make use of technology. So last year we had a number of assessments that were uploaded to an e-coursework system. This will be happening as well this year with the extended essay. Students will be uploading their coursework, saving a few trees. It also makes just the whole system more efficient and result time quicker. So that'll be the next phase of that. And then lastly, some revised CAS guidelines. The creativity, action, and service is now becoming creativity, activity, and service. And they've made some changes there. And we have one new CAS coordinator, and they are raring to go for this year. And that's basically the update there. And now I'll pass it over to Mr. Murphy to talk a little bit about professional development.
These are really more like closing remarks. It's been my 16-year quest to make this conversation about the IB Diploma Program a little bit deeper than just the numbers that we put before you. And why are we so enthusiastic and excited about the prospect of continuing our relationship? We could go into an hour into each of these parts that Ms. Nisler-Cross specified, but I said earlier that this is a transparent system, and that once the results come out, our work really begins. This is not a testing service. We're not talking about a series of exams that students take. In May, for instance, by the time the student sits the May IB English exam, 50% of the grade has already been allocated through a portfolio of work of written tasks, oral presentations, both done by the teacher, and informal assessment, formal testing conditions. What we get back, and it starts over the summer, are a series of reports and graded work back from the student. In other words, this student isn't just a 4. What we get are their subcomponents, how the student did in oral presentations, what their lab practical work is, how they did on the first exam, the second exam, how they did on their art portfolio, extensive work from the subject examiner who gives us a holistic view of the exam results, and then moderators' reports for each individual parts. That gives us license to start to subcompartmentalize. In other words, the student didn't just do well on paper 1, the student did well on these 2 descriptors in that paper and needs work here on these focal points. That starts to inform our approach next year, as we subdivide between Liz and I the subcomponent results and then request graded papers back from IB. As opposed to the AP exam system, we get the papers back upon request of the student work graded by the examiner for 2 reasons. Number 1, I want to see the specific things that we did well and accentuate those, as well as the causes that we need to improve upon. The second reason is I want to make sure that our students are being advocated for squarely. And as Liz said, the e-marking system is electronic, and it no longer is one examiner grading our students' work. They're sent to 110 countries simultaneously, and they're done discriminately and graded so that there's more standardization of results across the world. Upon request, we receive graded students' work, and that is where our results have been this year. Of course, we're proud of the results last year, but based on those, this year's professional development is predicated not just on those results, but also on the Regents' reports to do a more detailed analysis. I could stay up here half an hour, but I'll give you one very minor example. Paper 3 in the IB history exam was a cause for concern for us. The results were not as strong as we'd like, even though the overall results were fairly solid. So we requested the paper 3s back and did an analysis with the history department, looking at grades 9 to 12, not just at grade 12, because there are other evolutionary processes starting, not the least of which is the Common Core social studies standards are being implemented now, starting out in grade 9. Not that those students will have the Common Core exam, but we're looking at the continuum to see the best fit for our students. We looked at one question in particular with the group that 192 of the 197 students answered, and that's a really good sign. It means the curriculum drove them towards a certain direction. The question, and we're doing the happy dances, Ms. Nisler-Cross and I are walking around the exam, was the election of Lincoln in 1860 was the catalyst for the Civil War. Discuss. And we're singing the song as we're going around, going, that's awesome, we did 2 weeks on that. And the kids underperformed on the question. We said, why? So we got all the graded ones back. What the students did was not focus on the word catalyst. They gave us a detailed essay on the causes of the Civil War. If only that's what the question asked of them. They needed to focus on the prompt and spend another 10 to 15 minutes to understand the parameters that the question required of them and write they were looking for an argument from the student. Maybe it was the catalyst, maybe it wasn't. Let's take a look at what I learned and see where it fits. Because they didn't have rhetorical evidence, the students underperformed. So now we have detailed analysis and student work that we can move forward to better prepare the students in the future. Now that's one of dozens of examples that we're doing across the disciplines to make sure that the continuum is intact and that the transparency is used to make sure that the educational system that we're in is not only healthy, but really preparing students as best as possible. I'll stop because this could go on a long time.
Great job, John. Thank you. Liz, thank you very much. Don't go away. Just to stay. Well, presumably we're going to have a discussion.
Want to move back?
Thank you, John, Chris, and Liz. Very informative. First, do any board members have any questions for either presentation?
I do.
Sure, go ahead.
John, your enthusiasm for IB, just exploding out of you. The passing percentage is unbelievable, and I know that we're all very proud of it. One thing I noticed was the earth science percentage. Seemed very low, 63.
Thank you.
Is there an issue? Or
There's not an issue.
A course where we have to, do something to improve that?
And thank you. I should have made that a point of emphasis. Both earth science and algebra for our students here are the students who didn't pass it in grade 8. So it's a very small sampling size, and that class consists almost exclusively of students who have failed the exam at least once, which explains the low mastery rate as well as relative to the district, the passing rate.
And I hated to point out a bad number with all those great numbers.
No,
but
that's,
it definitely stands out in that batch of numbers.
Yep.
So, okay.
Can I make a comment? Is this on? It
Is your green light on?
I don't know. So I know we tend to do a little bit of state bashing here, and we don't really mean to, but Mr. Murphy pointed something really important out at the end of everything, which was that we learn from what the kids learn from. The state no longer allows, they embargo the tests. We're not allowed to look at the tests, and we're certainly not allowed to look at our students' test results. So we can't learn from them. We can't say, okay, our kids didn't get this. We need to work on how to present it better. Where IB allows us to be better. So thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
That was really amazing. Can you talk about, we made some changes over the last couple of years, and now everybody is taking English and history. Can you just talk about how that's going?
Sure. This is the 4th year that we've extended IB English for All, and the 5th year in IB History for All and IB History 11. IB English is a 2-year cohort, and for the 4th year, all students at Southside High School take the same English course in 12th grade. The difference is whether they elect to take the IB exam in May of the senior year or not. If they do choose to take the IB exam, it receives the IB designation, and the IB exam becomes their final. 93% of the graduating course elect to do so. The remaining 8 are in the same course with the same curricula, the same assessments. During the course year, they just don't sit the exam. The real ulterior motive is to make sure that they have as rich an experience in English literature as possible. IB History, we've extended it to grade 11 so far. Again, because the 2-year sequence lends itself and allows us to focus on American history in 11th grade, which also prepares students for the U.S. history regents. The litmus test in terms of our success with IB History for All, I think, rests in the 97% pass rate on the U.S. history regents, as well as the 81% mastery rate.
Off the top of your head, how many students do we have in IB Business?
A lot. 71.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that? I wasn't expecting
I was going
that.
to say that was not what you're...
No, but it's and they're already basing the curriculum. The IB Business course is not a testing service. It's a portfolio of work that authenticates real-life business world. In other words, in the real business world, you're not a marketing strategist, an accountant. You're an entrepreneur, and you have to do these things simultaneously. So the business course is based on what's called case study analyses, and that's what the assessments are. They give them hypothetical scenarios. They're actually not hypothetical. They're real, and give the students an experience in having to work them out through strategies. You're a burgeoning musician, you live in Cuba, you're 24 years old, you've made your own mark, and now you want to go into the production end of the business. Here are your strategies, here's your agent, here's your capital. Here are the margins on a CD or electronic version. What are you going to do? And here are your strengths. You're bilingual, but you don't have advanced math. Where are you going to go out and advocate for your work? And the students have to work through that scenario based on a series of criteria. I know, I want to take it too. So it's gone fairly well. Yeah.
Good. Anyone else? Go ahead. No.
It's the bottom.
There we go. Look at that. Chris, I noticed you did a comparison of the 2016 results to the 2014-15 school year state results. Is that because the state hasn't provided more recent data, or is that have anything to do with Common Core regents versus non-Common Core?
The state just hasn't made public their data for last year's June results on their state report card. They haven't published it yet, so we don't have that data. So I just put the most recent available data on that region slide.
Okay. So the 2016 results are from the 15-16 year. Our results.
Our results are from last year's June and August, 15-16 school year. That's correct.
Yeah, but we had to compare it to the most recent data available from the state, which was 14-15.
14-15. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. This is really concerning opt-out, so for Chris and Dr. J. We have long been an advocate of parental choice in making decisions for their children to opt out on the exams. But has the state made any progress to gain the confidence of parents that the exams that will be offered, or they're starting to change or modify the exams so that those that are offered are going to be fair, equitable, and appropriate?
The state is really trying, I will tell you this, because I work with them very closely on this. That's not to say that they listen, but they are working right now, and this is one of the reasons why they did two things last year, and this was done primarily because the commissioner had decided, one, that she's a reading teacher, and she will tell you this and she may tell you when you get to listen to her at the School Boards Association. She's a reading teacher, and she felt very strongly about the fact that kids should have extended time. And so she felt very, very good about the fact that she gave to the kids of New York State the opportunity to sit for as long as they needed in order to finish the exam. So that the 3-hour time limit did not necessarily apply. They could stay for as long as they wanted. Second element was they brought together teams of teachers up in Albany to review the test questions before they, in fact, were placed as operational questions on the exam. They felt very good about that because it meant that teachers, in advance of the administration of the exam, had an opportunity to point out to the state some of the fault lines in the complexity of the question or some of the mysteries that may have existed in some of the responses that were provided to the kids. So I think that is a step in the direction that we would like it to go. The problem for us, as I just said, is that both of those things compromise the validity of the exam because the state questions, once they were modified by the teachers, never had an opportunity to be field tested again, so we didn't know whether or not they were actually testing what they were designed to test. They are really trying, Mark. I really do believe that. I also work with a team of people who are trying to put together a transition plan. I mean, I didn't talk about it tonight. I will at some time in the future, probably, about what the transition plan is going to look like, given the new Common Core. There's going to be a whole new Common Core curriculum that will be emerging in January. Maybe I'll put that on for the next month's agenda to discuss. The earliest possible time when a new exam can emerge will be in 2019. My guess is that in all probability, that's not going to happen until 2020. So between now, the next wave of exams come in March of 2017. So between that point in time, and we know nothing's going to happen for March, and 2020, what happens? Nobody knows at this point. I mean, what are they going to rely upon? We've been advocating very strongly for the utilization. I'm not suggesting that we necessarily use the NWEA, but an NWEA-type model. And there's another one called STAR. So we're not the only, NWEA is not the only adaptive exam on the marketplace. We thought we were there. And the guy who had put together that plan and had it approved by the feds left the department. And the plan just disappeared from the drawing board. I do think they are trying to really make an effort, and the commissioner is really and truly trying to make an effort. I just don't think that the steps that they have taken so far are going to convince the people who want to opt their children out of the exam to do so.
Okay.
They are next year going to release the questions to the teachers, to us, 100% of the questions back to the teachers and to us. So we will be able to conduct an examination, as John just described, that takes place up at the high school. We'll be able to do that with the tests next year.
And they've never done that before, right?
They used to. They
Years
haven't done it
Right.
since the Common Core assessments.
But doesn't the NWEA allow us to look at our students in a similar fashion as to the IB to analyze what we're...
We do get it's data reporting is rich. It's not necessarily like, for example, we don't look at the questions from NWA. They have a bank of questions that they keep to themselves. That's why they can continue to use them. So they have thousands, tens of thousands of questions in there. We don't necessarily get to look at them, but we get so much data from the tests in terms of the granular level that John spoke to that gives us a great deal of information.
Right, and on the NWEA, not everyone's getting the same questions. It's not like an IB
Right.
exam where everybody...
Right.
We all would sit here, we'd all get
Different purpose.
different questions, right?
Right.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to ask any questions concerning these two topics? If so, please come up to the microphone. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you're still up.
Changing folders?
John, you are now standing between this group of people sitting in the audience and Hillary and Donald.
So let me tell you a little bit about myself.
Talking then.
Yeah, keep going.
1964. Good year. Okay, so what do you
Go
want
ahead.
to talk about?
Yeah, look, we have on, just so everybody knows, we're going to have an open house on November the 9th. Board of Ed asked us to put this on as an item for discussion. What I asked John to do, Mark, is just describe some of the things that are going to be happening on that night, so kind of using the word catalyst as a catalyst for
Thank you.
discussion.
You thought I was excited about the last thing. So as a celebration, we've been talking with Dr. Johnson and the board throughout 2 very long summers about ways, once the construction is over, to really invite the community and let them see what all the fuss was about. So it's been an idea that's been a long time coming, but it started to manifest itself in September. So on November 9th, it's a Wednesday, what we're going to do is have an open house that serves several purposes. The first of which, not in the order of importance, is to give the community open access through a self-guided tour of the brand new facilities. Both students and parents alike, but the greater Rockville Center, South Hempstead community as well. The second one, I took Mr. Mason very literally when in August at our first meeting, he said, here's the building, now go use it. And I think what we have to do is start to advocate for the things that really put the vitality and vibrancy into this building, which are the kids and the staff. If you've ever been here, even with the new spanking new building, the building is a little hollow when the kids aren't here, right? So what we planned on November 9th is an open house where, as you enter into the building, you'll be greeted by National Honor Society representatives who will provide you a map and a list of 84 locations that you can go through throughout the building, which will be clubs, groups, extracurricular activities, department spokespeople, and just cool stuff to hang out with. The physical education department will take 2 positions, for instance, both in the fitness room and in the gymnasium, to advocate for our varsity and junior varsity athletics, intramural activities, physical education activities, as well as varsity sports. The fitness center will take a group of clubs and activities in the hallway, such as Red Cross Club, Health and Wellness Club, as well as show off the fitness center. Around the corner will be our Z-Space lab that we received as a result of a generous grant from the Education Foundation, which is a virtual reality STEM lab where the students put on the glasses and can dissect a heart and really exciting things. So what we will do is gravitate our hopefully hundreds of people who I know are going to show up through several directions. One down the main hallway, which will have clubs and activities, which will lead them toward the science wing to look at the robotics. The other going straight ahead towards the new art wing, where people will be in a free flow and see a lot of cool stuff. So there'll be a lot of Southside students, and we've asked that they wear Southside attire. Not necessarily one uniform, but we want, chamber singers, athletes, best buddies, junior class presidents, so that what you should see when you go through the cafeteria and the performance groups play, which is where they're going to be, by the way, you'll see musicians with varsity athlete attire. And you'll see people in best buddies who are also chamber singers, because that speaks to the culture of the building. We're not a series of separate, discrete parts. We're a fabric where everyone intermingles. And to celebrate that, the open house should reflect that, both in the attire and in the feeling and the vibe of the building, or something like that.
Thank you. We also thought that as part of that evening, that we would also want to highlight our new athletic field and the lights and such. And this would be an opportune time to, at least for the board, to have a discussion as to whether we want to have the lights go on for a portion of the evening, or some modification of such. And if so, we would just need to amend the policy for the short duration that they would be on. Anybody have anything?
I'm in favor of turning lights on.
Okay.
I'd like to see the field lights stay on, the full lights stay on till 8 PM, and then leave the upper walking lights on till 9 PM, and then go down to the security lights after that. So,
That sounds like a good compromise.
so that the bulk of the people would have the full advantage of seeing the field lit to its full potential. And then I believe by going to the upper walking lights, we're not violating our policy of, keeping the lights on after 8 o'clock during the week.
No, you're not. As a matter of fact, no, you're not.
Anyone else?
I agree.
Good
Okay,
idea.
so I guess let me have a motion for that modification for our policy as a one-time deviation, and...
So moved.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
And thanks to the Teachers Association for feeding the 84 faculty members who volunteered for the open house, by the way. Thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
Yeah, very good.
Mr. Murphy, how are we advertising this anywhere? How are we getting the word out to the public at
Well,
large?
Right there.
it's a multi-pronged approach. Well, it started with last week where we sent an open invitation to the middle school and by paper, a hard copy to the 8th grade students, in large part because this club fair is an elaboration upon what we usually do in January, which is a very brief clubs and activity fair during freshman orientation. This will replace that. We then sent out a letter to all the principals K to 12 and asked them to backpack those. So that'll be coming out in the coming weeks. There will be a electronic, what do you call it, Lauren? A brochure that will be going on to our electronic media, specifically the Facebook and the web pages, as well as we're hoping to get a message at the railroad.
Okay.
Yes, as well as a 7-page pullout in the
In full color.
I'll take 6.
Lauren, before I forget, just take a look at our website. I think it needs some updating on the homepage. Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Moving on. Policies and regulations, 6441, non-bargaining unit employees. Any background we want to fill in here? Anybody have any questions?
Just wait. What do you need more?
Yes?
Just the one little change?
Oh,
It's Summers and
it's
Fridays.
really very simple. There are some of our members of our staff who would like to come in and work on Fridays and use that as during the summertime, and use it as a day equal to what they would normally use if we were to assign them for work during a vacation period during the school year.
How is that going to, is that going to have any effect on what our goal had been, was to close the buildings on Fridays during the summer? Is it going to really have any?
No, have no effect.
No real effect?
No.
Is there a minimum number of staff members that would be necessary to make it cost effective? In terms of opening the building, does it make?
We wouldn't be opening the building just for that employee. The building would have to be open for the person to come in. So we have custodial staff at the high school for various events.
Okay.
So for sporting events or other events on Fridays. So if there's nothing going on, then we wouldn't have anybody else coming in.
Okay. Okay.
It will have some budgetary impact, though, right? The payment of those days over and above their regular typical salary.
Yes, it could, but they may not be working during the other
The
recess.
other days.
Okay.
Right. So
They may or may not.
It'll end up as a wash?
They're limited to 4 days.
it may or may not, but yeah, they are limited to how many days.
They're limited. See, in other words, there is a limit on how many days they can work and be paid.
Okay.
So it won't have an impact. There's a limit for them that can work over their typical work week? or is there a limit overall?
overall for the year.
All right, so no, I'm going with no impact on the budget.
No, none whatsoever.
Okay. We can advance this to the next stage, Jackie?
Sure, thank you.
Opportunity for superintendent, please.
I don't have anything else, Mark, thank you.
Okay. Board members? Anyone have anything they'd like to add?
Thank you for the recognition. It's always appreciated, even though we don't really love getting it.
Yes.
Thank you for the singers. They're unbelievable. They always are unbelievable. It's so nice to hear how much they've grown over the years. I always say that when you listen in the elementary schools, and then when you start to listen here, it's like, wow, it makes a difference. And I think that's all. And I would just love to see everybody here on November 9th with their neighbors and friends, just to take a look at the school. And everything that's done here is paid for by the taxpayer. So if outside families can come and appreciate that, that would be a great thing. It would show them, the benefit of the increase in the tax dollars. So, thank you.
No? Yes.
I'm going to keep it short so everybody else can get home and watch the debate. So thank you for appreciating us. You don't want to watch the debate. Well, for those who are interested in watching the debate, you can get home and watch the debate. I hope everybody enjoyed our new space and had an opportunity to walk around the building, but come back on the 9th of November when the building will really be open and filled with students, and it should be an exciting night. Thank you for putting that together.
That is the day after Election Day, so let's be careful. Yes.
Mr. Murphy, thank you for the presentations tonight. How is this room working? Have you come up with a plan as far as, other than the board using it for meetings?
It's been flexible. We're having our first professional development here next week with about 30 faculty to see if we can fully utilize the split screen. The reservations have been slow. We're going to have all our faculty meetings in here from now on. In terms of full utilization of an instructional space, though, it's a work in progress. So we don't have furnished.
But the sound acoustics work, so, yeah.
Well, it's I don't want to be negative, but it's a little boxy, or the sound isn't.
Okay, but I think once we fully include, furniture, there's a lot of soundproofing that will come organically, but once we fill the cabins, it'll
Okay, cool.
Well,
Thank
I'm not
you.
blaming you, I'm blaming the designer, maybe.
It's also supposed to be somewhat of a blank slate, because it's a room that can be used for many different
For
things.
common purposes.
Multi-purpose.
Right, and I know one of your ideas at one point was going back to IBR, how we have to have installations now as part of the new curriculum. We can put them here instead of throughout the walls, throughout the halls. So
Only downside is visibility. It's nice when they're in the hall. You're speaking the end of the year when they're set up in the hall?
No, this is an exam.
Oh,
set
okay,
up.
all right. Very good.
Display of art for an exam.
Okay.
No, I agree.
You'd lose the visibility of it if, it's a nice space, but not everybody would see if it was at that point.
Cool. Thank you again.
And we should remind people that for our meetings, that there is a parking lot right out here. You don't have to walk all the way from the front entrance, the main entrance to this building.
You can park back there, and there's bathrooms
buses
right
you-
there.
And
They
there's
use it for the
bathrooms
buses.
and entrances
Huh?
out to the parking lot right out here.
Maybe we should take a car.
Yes.
Take the golf cart. We'll take a car up there.
Okay,
Yellow bus.
a couple of things from my perspective. One, I want to thank Dr. Lay for a wonderful event she ran last Saturday, the Health and Wellness Fair. It was attended by hundreds of people on a gorgeous day, and everyone had a great time, so thank you. And on the PAR for this evening is we have reached an agreement with our teachers union, a 3-year contract. So I want to thank our administration, the union, for working to get this done for the community and for our kids. It's a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I have a motion? Oh, yes. Now, does our visitor wish to make a comment?
Thank you for staying.
Does our visitor like to ask a question?
Okay. Okay, moving on to items for action. Dr. Johnson?
We can, in fact, do this by acclamation,
Yes.
so.
Okay, a motion for the items listed as an item for action, as well as the PAR.
So moved?
The second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes.
Robert, on the contracts, the bus, all the bus contracts, I never recall so many extensions and so many dollars to be determined. Is that, I've just missed that over the years, or is this something different?
That's pretty much standard.
It's standard procedure.
He usually breaks them up over 2 meetings.
Why is there so, we're approving a contract without a dollar value to it. How is that, how can we do that?
They're all based on state requirements for the extensions based on CPI.
So CPI isn't set yet for the contract? Or it is?
I don't understand the concept
Oh,
of
it's set
writing a contract
with
without a dollar
9%.
value attached to it. It just, to me,
No, it's for the anticipated costs. The contract is set, the rate is set, but it's how many students may actually be on that bus. So that number is going
To
to
be
change.
determined about how many
So if
students
we
are on
have
the bus.
three kids maybe going now, maybe there's only 2 kids going or 4 kids going by the time
Changes the
June
rate.
comes. So that number may change depending on how many students we have going to each particular school.
then shouldn't the contract read cost per student, X dollars, depending on the student? Shouldn't it be more specific to a dollar amount rather than just it's basically, I'll equate it to writing a blank check. Fill in the value when you, I understand there's more checks and balances to it after the point, but we're approving a contract that has no dollar value attached to it and no even reference to a dollar value attached to it.
Yeah, every one of them has a dollar value.
No, not everyone does, but because
Some of them aren't,
places
some of
don't
them
have any
are.
students going.
Yeah,
But
but
isn't it some of this blank?
Right, these are
Right.
part of the overall consortium that we have with Nassau County, so we're part of all these different schools. We are part of this contract for transportation to a number of Nassau County schools. So we may not have somebody going to a particular school now, but should we end up having somebody go to that school,
Contracts there.
that contract is there, we can
Okay.
set them at that rate as opposed to going out to bid for a brand new contract in
holding
November,
Okay.
where we end up with a very high contract.
Okay. Good, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to return to executive session to discuss contracts
So moved.
and litigation?
And a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.